It's Craig and Richard here from the Monash Mindfulness bunker at the moment. So we're not in the studio. We won't be for the next few weeks because of this whole COVID-19 thing that's happening in the world today. So mindfulness is pretty helpful anytime, but I think it's going to be very, very helpful in this particular interesting and strange times.
And especially an online mindfulness course. I imagine some people have plenty of time for learning things right now. And of course, learning online is becoming the method du jour at the moment, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So some fantastic feedback this week from so many learners, and we're going to be exploring some of the key topics that have come up. So thousands of people all around the world. It's great to be a part of this community. One of the things that perhaps you want to say a little bit too about the mindful driving side of things. Yeah.
So we're really interested this run of the course in looking at how mindfulness impacts people's driving. So we've developed an app in-house here at Monash, which is supposed to give you immediate feedback when you fill in the questionnaires. And we became aware in the early stages of the week that there was a glitch, maybe a little coronavirus happening in our software. And
it's getting it everywhere.
It's getting everywhere. And so some of you were getting sort of strange feedback that kind of reversed if you thought you were a very patient driver or saying you're terribly aggressive driver. So we really apologise about the glitch. We have posted what are called norms. So we've posted some sort of cut-off amounts that you could compare your score to see where you fit compared to the average, maybe see if you're below or above average on the 4 dimensions that we're looking at. Some of you had issues logging in with your emails. We apologise for that. It just seems to be a technical glitch that we haven't been able to fix. But for those of you who are doing the study, thank you for enrolling in that. And we really hope it helps you to just monitor your own driving, but also your own mindfulness throughout the course.
Look, being able to be mindful in the middle of traffic, especially peak hour traffic, that is black belt mindfulness, right?
Black belt mindfulness at its best. And of course, for anybody who's not driving or who's not in the study, just being aware of whether in each moment of your life you're actually doing things mindfully or you're in that default mode. That's really a very important thing to do. So just paying more and more attention to that throughout the day, I think will probably add a lot of value to you personally as you do this course.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of learners have found very helpful right from the start is the comma and the body scan.
Yeah, the formal practices.
Yeah, and it's pretty revealing right from the start. Firstly, a lot of learners have been noticing that they feel more relaxed when they do that. And that's very helpful in itself. But as we've noted that paradoxically, we're not interested necessarily in the outcome, although the outcome very commonly comes as a natural side effect of being more mindful. So many learners are noticing more relaxed. But it's about the process, worrying less about the outcome. But the outcome, in a sense, sort of looks after itself.
Well, it's a paradox, isn't it, Craig? Is anybody ever doing a mindfulness course is probably wanting to get something from it, to be less stressed or more present or more focused at work or in whatever they're doing. And we have to also almost kind of let that go, don't we? Because if we're attached to that as an outcome, we're not actually being in the present. And paradoxically, when we let go of the outcome and what we're trying to achieve, suddenly we're in the moment. And that's when we tend to be really present, not stressed, relaxed, etc.
And when we're really preoccupied about the outcome and we're experiencing something different, I'm not relaxing, then we often tense up even more, get frustrated or irritated, and we actually get in our own way. So funnily enough, not worrying about the outcome allows the process to flow easier. And another thing that a lot of learners have noticed very early on in the piece is becoming more aware of how much wandering the mind does.
Fantastic. It's great to start noticing that, isn't it? Because it's happening a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I think much more than that 46.9% of the time that they found a few years ago.
Yeah. And so what's actually a sign of progress is interpreted by some people, some of our learners perhaps, as a sign of not getting it right. And it's actually a sign of progress.
Yes.
That we're noticing the things that we often don't notice. So well done for those of you who are noticing how much the mind wanders.
Craig, one of our learners did say that they were so concerned about their mind wandering that every time they were meditating, the net result was feeling anxious and frustrated.
Well, it sort of ties in with what we were saying a moment ago about trying to get the outcome, stop the mind wandering.
So maybe a better approach would be to acknowledge, hey, the mind wanders. It's what it does. To not try to stop it and to not judge it or react to it or get disappointed when it does. But just to acknowledge, okay, it wanders, but hey, if I notice that it's wandered, I can bring it back. And next time it wanders, I can bring it back. And that's a much better way of practicing because it takes that mental fight, that mental tug of war out. And then we're just cultivating being more and more present.
Well, that's right. Now, mind you, there's a little trap here, that, we come back and we're getting less irritated and so on. And after a little while, the mind will chip in with, hey, this is great.
Yes.
My mind's not wandering so much. Look at me, I'm so much more in the moment.
Which is just another judgment. That's a positive judgment now. So it's whether it's a positive judgment, a negative judgment, it's all taking us away from what's actually happening. So when we step out of that, suddenly we're practicing mindfulness. Suddenly we're here.
Yeah.
Speaking of being more self-aware, some of our learners as well found that they're more aware of their emotions, which is fantastic. One of our learners in particular, thank you for your comments, talking about being more aware of angry feelings. And really importantly, noticing that he or she perhaps, were feeling them in different parts of their body, maybe, a knot of anger in the stomach. And that's fantastic, because once we start noticing the physical correlates of our emotions, we can become much more aware of when they're showing up throughout the day. Yeah. And this learner asked, do others experience emotional feelings that are connected with certain parts of their body? So I'd be really interested to track the conversation around that on the forums.
And certainly from our experience, personally, but also professionally, yes, we do.
Yes.
We notice we start to carry tensions that we weren't even aware of in certain parts of the body. And also, and it's one of the things I think the body scan in particular really does, is that those little sensory areas, the proprioceptive areas in our brain get a workout. And we do start to notice more things related to our body language or how we're communicating, for example. We start to notice things that we previously...
I'm trying to be really aware at the moment of not touching my face. that's a hard challenge.
Well, look, if you touch your face, well, that's fine. Just don't touch my face afterwards, right?
Yeah. So look, emotions show up in different parts of the body for different people, or even us at different times. So it's not like we're looking for a formula like anger's here and sadness is here or something like that. But there are commonalities. And the important thing is to pay attention to that, because it helps us to become more aware of our emotions.
Yeah, it's like a little light goes off and we notice it. And it holds up a kind of a mirror to our emotional state. Yeah. And that helps us to then make a more discerning choice about how to respond to that.
Beautiful. Other questions arose around, what's the best way to notice the breath without trying to control it?
Yeah. And again, I think the best way to do that is just to notice the breath without having to control it.
Notice that you don't have to control it. It's happening anyway.
Well, it is a very common thing to notice, and we will have all experienced it. As soon as our attention goes to something, there's some part of us that comes in and wants to control it. So the meditation can make that quite obvious, because there we are practicing the meditation. Attention goes to the breathing, then we try to control that. Attention goes to the mind, we try to control that. And we experience these things quite acutely, say when we step up to speak in public. And all of a sudden we're trying to control our breathing, trying to control our reactions. And the funny thing is, the harder we try to control it, the more out of control we feel. Yeah. The more difficult it becomes. And there's a kind of, there's a little bit of anxiety about control that we have. Now, again, paradoxically, not trying to control it. Just letting it be as it is, just allowing it to flow as it is, not trying to control the thoughts, just letting them come and go as they are. So the less we try to control, the less out of control we are, because there's a kind of a letting go. There's a kind of social distancing from our thoughts. And all of a sudden, they're just a little bit less controlled there.
Beautiful. And of course, doing this on a regular basis, doing these practices on a regular basis is a really important thing. So we've got some tips. Sherelle, one of our mentors, has left some tips in step 1.6 for how to do it. The number one pro tip, I think, is to meditate at the same time every day. Yeah. And to tie it in with an existing part of your routine. That's the thing. So it's before breakfast, or it's immediately after your shower, it's right before bed. Or even being creative, if it's hard to fit it into the day. One of the practices I give to a lot of my type A clients in my coaching practice is to get to the car park at work, turn off the car and sit there for 5 or 10 minutes. Just do it in the car before getting out of the car. So it's about being creative and finding the time that works. So practice record in step 1.8 is also a really helpful way of keeping track of what works and what gets in the way, so that we can become more mindful around that.
Yeah. We've been discussing a little bit about not being outcome orientated, it's process orientated.
Yes.
Because the process of mindfulness is happening now, the outcome is about future. So if we're going to be mindful and present, it's about the moment, it's about the process, and let the outcomes look after themselves. So lots of tips there. One of the other things, just briefly to mention too, is about more aware of being in default mode, and that's the term given to
The
distraction, mental talk, and how in states like anxiety and depression, etc., there's a lot of default mode. So the mindfulness brings our awareness to it. Our ability to leave it alone and just engage with what we're doing and to do that in a gentle way means we'll be less impacted upon that. And that when we actually start to do that, learners are already noticing that we're actually not our thoughts. There's a thought there. We could engage with it or leave it alone. It's like you've got a newspaper in front of you. And there's all sorts of articles and thoughts put on that page. You could give your attention to one or the other. We don't have to necessarily engage with it just because it's there. And that's a very liberating thing that a lot of our learners are already noticing.
Yeah, yeah. And some of you are also noting how modern society really values busyness and this myth, let's say, of multitasking. We'll unpack that a bit more in coming weeks. But there's this real valuing of busyness and doing, I would say, less at the moment. There's a recognition, hey, maybe we need to sort of gear down a notch. It's quite an interesting time in history where perhaps people are being a bit more present. But certainly one of the big barriers is just this overvaluing of busyness and productivity.
Yeah.
But if we look closely, are we actually being productive or are we just being busy? Much ado about nothing, as your friend William might have said.
Yes, well, it's probably about time for us to finish up because there's a lot of things I've got to get on with. I've got a really full day today. So next week we'll be looking at mindful stress reduction, cultivating curiosity, and deepening our ability to bring mindfulness into our everyday activities. So the mentors will be engaging with week 2 content from Monday the 23rd of March. So it'd be great to stay in step with the mentors and all of the other learners around the world. So anyway, it's many parts of the world, but we very much feel like we're one community. So it's great to be with you.